Security Now Illustrated by AskMisterWizard.com, illustrating concepts, mechanisms, and algorithms from the amazing Security Now podcast by Steve Gibson and Leo LaPorte. Episode 27, How LANs Work. Segment 2, Subnet Mask. In order to route packets on your LAN, every LAN participant must understand two items. They are, one of two, how many IP addresses can be reached directly on this LAN without help from my ISP, and two of two, how can I distinguish IP addresses that I can reach directly from IP addresses that can only be reached by my ISP?
Well, that's this thing that's called a subnet mask. It's what the subnet mask does. And, people who are using normal NAT routers will typically see the IP of their router will be 192.168.0.1, for example.
That's the gateway router.
Well, exactly.
Okay.
And that'll also be the IP that their router participates in the local area network from. Now, the subnet mask of that can vary, but for example, it's often 255.255.255.0, or it might be 255.255.0.0. But either way, the idea is that the IP that a packet is destined for, that is the target IP, is compared against this subnet mask to see if the digits where we've got 255s are the same as the machine's own IP, essentially. The idea being, for example, that a computer connected in the LAN might be 192.168.0.2, for example. If it's sending a packet to any IP with the last with the last byte difference, so like .2, .3, .4, where the left-hand side of the IP has all the same numbers, 192.168.0, well, it knows that because of this subnet mask, which is saying, essentially specifying which IPs are in the local network, it's saying, okay, this machine is directly reachable by me, so it addresses the packet to that machine that it's sending the data to directly, as opposed to saying, for example, if you were connecting to Microsoft and you had some completely different IP, 4.79. something else, it would notice that the digits were different where the subnet mask was a 255. That's sort of the whole key to this. That tells it that this is an IP not on the local area network, but one that is located somewhere else.
So 255, if you put it in binary, it's maybe a little easier to understand. Each of these is 8 bits, and a 255 is all ones.
Correct.
And a 0 is all zeros, 8 bits of ones, 8 bits of zeros. So it would be 11111.11111.11111.0 or .00000. So where it's ones, that's where you pay attention. Where it's zeros, it could be changed.
Exactly. So I'm glad you said that way, because it's where it's ones, you compare your destination IP to your own network to see whether they match up. If they differ, then that says, oh, this is not an IP on our local area network. We need to send this to the gateway.
Maybe another way to understand it is that allowed addresses on the LAN, on the local network, are those that are not masked by ones.
That's another way of saying it, yes.
So if it's got zeros in those places that it exists, then that would mean that it doesn't have to always be 255 or 0. It could be 254 or some other number, yes?
Well, that's actually true, and it does get complicated. While I was trying to figure out how to visually describe this, I thought, well, if I get into networks where the mask is sliding to different values, we're really going to get ourselves
It does get complicated.
Tangled up and lost. But for example, the 192.168, we've talked about this network before because it's been reserved so that it's only for use in private networks. Another network, for example, is the 10 dot network that we've talked about, where it's 10 dot anything dot anything dot anything. Well, the subnet mask for a 10 dot network would be 255.0.0.0, meaning that any IP beginning with 10 is going to be part of that same 10 dot local area network, and then all the IPs beginning with 10 having anything else fall within that, but anything that doesn't start with a 10 will be outside of that LAN.
So when you put a subnet mask into a router, you're telling the router which places are significant when it comes to routing versus local, where to pay attention, essentially.
Well, exactly. And all of the machines on the same LAN will have the same subnet mask.
They have to, yeah.
Yes. There's an agreement among them all that we're all machines in a network that contains this block of IPs and doesn't contain all the other IPs. And so that's the key. It's like, is this IP in our LAN or is it not in our LAN?
There's another side effect because it will also say how many available IP addresses you can use. For instance, if you have a mask of 255.255.255.0, it means you have a total of 255 addresses you can use in that network.
Yeah, you lose a few. You lose the very last address in any LAN is the so-called broadcast address, because by agreement a packet addressed to that is actually heard by everyone on the LAN. It's a broadcast, and in fact there have been some early exploits that have taken advantage of that to do all kinds of wacky things with ping packets. And then the zeroth address, that is the 0 IP, is also reserved as the so-called network address. That is the address for the whole network. And then you'd have IPs 1 through 254. One of those IPs is going to be the gateway, unless you could have a LAN with no gateway. If it was just a LAN not connected to anything else, you could have a bunch of machines all connected just to a hub or a switch that are not connected to the internet, in which case they wouldn't have a defined gateway because there's no way for them to send traffic outside of the LAN.
So you really effectively have 253 addresses.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've been using the subnet masks for so long, and now to know what they really mean, it's so nice.
To see the other segments and related resources for this episode, please join us at AskMisterWizard.com. Select Security Now from the prominent section index at the top of the homepage. Choose an episode from the index at the bottom, and then select a segment from the resulting page. The original audio-only version of this podcast can be found on the Gibson Research Corporation site at grc.com/securitynow. This clip illustrates some of the highlights from that show. This video clip comes from a large collection of related clips. All are indexed and easy to find at www.askmisterwizard.com, along with related items, text articles, illustrations, and forums. Please visit us today. We appreciate your support. Thank you.